So, hello and welcome to the Football Talk Show with myself, Keds, Architect, Holder, and coming to get your plays. Today we are only accompanied by Keds. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, I am Keds.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, please, Keds.
I am a Chelsea supporter, as some of you from Phantom's chat might already know. But I'll do my best to keep it, neutral during the talk show, give my honest opinion on what's going on. But obviously, deep down, we all know Chelsea are the best team in the world. Definitely not lying or anything. But yeah, no, looking forward to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we can all disagree on that. I think we all know that Sheffield United are clearly the best team in not only in the world, but definitely in the Premier League. We've had an amazing season so far. We're only 17 points. That's like 1 point every 2 games ish.
I'd say that was an absolutely outstanding points return, if you ask me.
Yes, I do agree. I think we've been amazing this season. Right, so the concept of how we're going to do this show is we are going to be talking mainly about the Premier League, but we're also going to cover what's happened throughout the Championship, League 1, League 2 and the National League. And if we get time, which we probably won't today because we started very late, but if we get time in the future, we are going to be talking about other leagues around the world. We'll also be doing a little preview for the UCL that's coming up this week. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And we're going to start with where the weekend started, which was Friday night, in the game between Arsenal and Everton. So, for the people who haven't watched this game, Everton walked away with a 1-0 victory through a burnt Leno own goal. It was an entertaining way to kick off the weekend fixtures as the two teams chasing the top 6 met at the Emirates Stadium on Friday night. And Arsenal, despite starting off the stronger of the two sides, will be disappointed to walk away with nothing from a great game of football. The Gunners had a minimal contact penalty overruled for an offside in the build-up to the decision. Everton hit the crossbar in the first half from Gylfi Sigurdsson from a free kick. The free kick was perfectly weighted, but just like that little bit of dip to find the back of the net. And late into the game, the deadlock was finally broken after an awful mistake from the Arsenal goalkeeper Bernd Leno, after Richarlison did well to beat Granit Xhaka on the outside of the box before distributing the ball into the centre, where it looked to be a simple save for Leno, but unfortunately went through his legs. Having said that, Everton are up to 52 points and do have a game in hand against Aston Villa coming up, and sit only 2 points outside of the top 6. Arsenal, meanwhile, dropped to 10th place on only 8. Dropped to 10 points and sitting 8 points adrift of the top 6. Kids, what are your takes on the Arsenal-Everton game?
I'd say it's definitely an underwhelming performance from an Arsenal fan's perspective. Obviously they have a lot loftier goals than where they currently are in the Premier League table. If you think statistically as well, when Arsene Wenger was at the club, they'd never finished on less than 63 points. And this season, it's only mathematically possible for them to get a maximum of 61 points. So it just goes to show that the club's been on a bit of a decline since the departure of Arsene Wenger. Obviously, they're now sitting 10th in the table, which to think that 5 years ago that Arsenal were consistently a top 4 team, it's crazy to see them so far down in the table. And obviously, when you look at the league table, Everton beating Arsenal, it's a tight game just to further emphasise the very narrow gap between them in the Premier League table. And the stats of that game, obviously with it being an own goal separating the two teams, it really just goes to show it's just not a very one-sided affair at all. And if anything, Arsenal had the better of Everton, enjoying 59% possession. Arsenal with 3 shots on target to Everton's 1. It really goes to show that just one moment of madness can really throw a game away from you.
Yeah, and again, going back to Arsenal 5 years ago, I remember when everybody was making a meme out of them finishing fourth, and Arsenal fans didn't really like it. It was like a running joke that Arsenal fans weren't really going with. But now looking back on it, do you think the Arsenal fans would take fourth place again? They've had a couple of mediocre seasons. Yeah, if I was an Arsenal fan, I definitely would.
I know that I would.
Performances.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crazy to see the decline of the team in, well, recent years even. Because, they literally used to be a Champions League team. It's not so long ago that you were seeing them playing against the likes of Bayern Munich. It's crazy.
Yeah, and also just speaking on Arsenal and Everton in particular, I remember a few years ago, first game of the season, Everton played at home to Arsenal, and Arsenal walked away with a 6-1 victory, and that was sometime in the past 5 or 6 years. But to look at how far Everton have come as a club and how well they've become especially over the past 2 years or so, it was only midway through last season they were sitting in the bottom 6 teams. They were really struggling. And they've really lifted themselves up. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's had an incredible season. He's not really been at the races like he was early on this season, but he still had a great season. Richarlison's a fantastic player. Alan just seems to be getting better with every touch of the ball. But Arsenal, I don't know, Arsenal just seem like one of them teams who are too dependent on certain players. And when certain players aren't performing or aren't playing, really know who to turn to.
Yeah, I can imagine as well that it's also partly to do with the ownership. You see Arsenal fans protesting outside of the Emirates, asking the owners to invest, or they know where the door is. Because when you look at Arsenal's recent transfer history as well, they just really haven't looked like they have the pulling power that they once did. And that is to do with the ownership of the club, which is further like the ownership of the club is put into further doubt when you see the whole European Super League thing and the amount of teams and fans that are going against the ownership of their clubs. And it must be frustrating for an Arsenal fan because they don't get the quality of player that maybe they want, because they just don't, the board seemingly just don't want to invest in the club.
Yeah, and I guess that's another talking point for Arsenal too, because I know they want their owners out of the club. And I read something earlier about the owner of Spotify wanting to take over at Arsenal with the help of some of the Arsenal legends such as Bergkamp and Henry. I just wonder what everyone else's take is on these events.
I'd say I haven't really looked too much at all into the change of ownership, but I feel like it would just be refreshing as a fan, because you want your owner first and foremost to care about your club, and obviously with them having the help of former legends, namely Bergkamp, Henry, like players like that have such a connection with the club, it's definitely going to be there, that connection with the club, wanting the club to succeed. And obviously, like the owner of Spotify, well, that speaks for itself. But when you compare that to what they have currently with Kroenke as their owner, it's being run, obviously it is a business, but it's not being run like a football club. They're not actually investing into it, whereas I feel if that change goes ahead, there would definitely be an increase in investments being put into the team.
Yeah, there's a definite lack of passion from the current owners. As far as I understand it, they don't even turn up to the games, do they?
I think I read somewhere that he turns up to one game a season, and it took a while for him to understand the offside rule. So that is not a promising sign.
As you touch upon, it's clearly just a business to some people, and I think that's something that we always had. As a Sheffield United fan for a long time, that's something we always had that worked in our favour. as we had the passion of a Sheffield United fan as our chairman and owner. That isn't currently the case anymore, and I know a lot of people, my club in particular, are getting a bit, hasty with our current chairman. But I think you need to give people a chance. But with the Kroenke and the Spotify owners and whatnot taking over, I think it's right for Arsenal to get rid of the current owners, if I'm honest. I don't think it's a benefit to the club. And I think they'd be better without them. Anyway, moving on. We're going to move on to Saturday's early kickoff, which took place between Liverpool and Newcastle. Now, Liverpool were completely dominant for the most part of this game. And despite having said that, they did look a little bit shaky at the back when coming under pressure from Newcastle. They were held. Mohamed Salah found his 20th goal of the season, which was an incredible achievement for the season for himself. For anybody who hasn't seen the highlights, it was a very good finish. He took it really well, he turned really well, and he finished really well. And Joe Willock found a 95th minute goal to equalise in what could have quite easily gone as a Newcastle win had the first goal been given after the controversial handball from Callum Wilson. What's your thoughts on that, Ked?
I mean, it's no secret that I have a very strong connection with Newcastle FC as well. Me personally, I was delighted to see the 1-1 scoreline after seeing the goal had been chalked off, because it would be so easy. Imagine that you score so late on, with namely Callum Wilson, and you'd almost feel deflated if you score that late on just for it to get chalked off. So I'm very happy to see that they didn't stop fighting and fought until the end, especially at Anfield, which they won't have had the atmosphere there that the Liverpool fans like to they're so proud of, because it is an atmosphere there. But Newcastle. Also, Joe Willock, I've noticed a lot getting on the score sheet late on in games. Maybe an option, because he has scored more goals than all of Arsenal's midfield this season. So whether they loan him out next season as well could be interesting. As I just saw, we didn't deserve to win anyway. I don't know, it's a weird one, because you would expect a team like Liverpool to win, and it puts a huge dent in their ambitions for Champions League football next season as well. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's a bad result for Newcastle. Obviously, you would have liked to have seen them score. It was a very controversial handball. It's not like Wilson could do anything about it anyway. It would have been nice to see them walk away with all 3 points, because that would definitely help them in the battle at the lower end of the table. But overall, it's not bad at all.
Speaking of a battle at the lower end of the table, I think Newcastle are pretty much safe at this point.
I'd say so too.
Drift of a drop zone, with only 5 games remaining, which is a total of 15 points. I'd say at this point, the only team that I really think would be in any danger would be Brighton, which we'll get to in a little bit. But again, looking at the stats, on paper, Liverpool were the more dominant side, and watching the highlights, Liverpool were definitely more dominant than Newcastle were. But as I said before, I think it's probably because we don't have Van Dijk. They seem very shaky at the back, Liverpool, sometimes.
Yeah, Van Dijk is an absolutely huge presence.
Yeah, it's really poor with defending. What do you think the issue is for Liverpool this season compared to last season, like putting aside the Van Dijk injury? Because let's look at their squad. It's not like their squad's made up of like championship quality players and Van Dijk's just this outstanding player. It's made up of Premier League and Champions League players. Should they be able to replace Van Dijk if needed?
Well, what I've been looking into a lot is you see how they played last season, and it was strangling teams at times with the gegenpress up top, because Klopp really did like using that pressing system. But then this season they've had so many injuries all over the field that they simply can't afford to play with such a tactic that that is so risky when your squad has injuries already, so you're lacking depth. So they've obviously had to change up the tactic, which obviously isn't going to help because it's not how they want to play. And I'm sure with a fully fit squad, they surely try and go back to the gegenpress as well. This season, the schedule is so crammed that playing with that gegenpress, even if you do have a fully fit squad, is just it's asking for trouble. Simply because the fixtures are so crammed in and you're playing such a physically intensive tactic. But yeah, there's also signings that you've got to look at, like Thiago's influence. He hadn't won a game at Anfield since signing until I think it was January or February. So you've got to look at signings like that and think you ask more. You've had Allison, who's been unfortunate with his whole family incidents, mistakes creeping in because maybe he's a bit distracted. But then you can always link that back to the manager. Should he even have played in that situation? Personally, I don't think he should. With what Allison was going through, I honestly don't think he should have been playing through that period.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying that he shouldn't have been playing, but at the same time, sometimes you need your passion, which obviously for him is football, to take your mind away from events that happen in real life. You need something to distract you from what's happening, otherwise you might fall into a bit of a depressive state, and that wouldn't be good for his career and like long term. So I understand Klopp's decision to play him and Alisson's decision to play for Liverpool during that like traumatic time for him. But I do agree with you, and I don't think it should have been taken as a risk because I think it seriously affected some of Liverpool's performances around that time. I'm not saying that it had necessarily been better with a different goalkeeper, but I'm saying that if it did have a different goalkeeper, results might have been more positive in their favour. But what do you think Chelsea? What do you think Liverpool? Should do going forward from here?
So going forward from here, they need to. I mean, first and foremost, the race for top four isn't over. It really is not over. There's still an outside chance that they can finish in the top four, however unlikely. And if not,
4 points adrift there's still 15 to play for. Anything can happen. It's like you said to me earlier. You said you still had to play Man City. Yeah. If you play Man City and they win the fixture that they play on that day,
that reduces that gap to 1 point.
Yeah.
So if going forward, they need to focus on the task at hand, their 5 remaining fixtures. Obviously, a disappointing season for them with no silverware. But it happens. And honestly, I've seen much worse title defenses. But what you need to do going forward from that is you've got to take the pre-season to recuperate, find what still works, and think of ways to change it. And I think it's the same for a lot of teams. That's what they're going to have to do in this pre-season, especially Chelsea, which we'll go and talk about in a sec. There's a lot of things that you can do going forward, but the one thing they can't do is let their heads get down. That is when they will seriously get in trouble, and players will start. Well, some will walk out. The manager might walk out. It will cause terrible scenes. So the one thing they can't do is let their heads drop. They've got to keep going, and it will really test the resolve of that squad.
Yeah. One last thing quickly with Liverpool. Do you think it's time for Klopp to walk, or do you think they should give him another season?
No, I don't think he should. 1 season ago, he won the Premier League in absolutely astonishing fashion. I don't think he should walk. Although in saying that, he made his feelings perfectly clear to the board about the Super League. Maybe he would have walked over that, but we won't know that now. But I don't think Klopp will walk out on it just yet. I think if they have a repeat this season, then maybe. But I can't see that happening. I see this season as a blip, and I still believe that tactically Klopp still knows how to beat teams.
Yeah, I agree. He does.
So I don't think he'll be walking just yet. He's still got an incredibly talented squad to work with. And like I said, having the pre-season will let them figure out how to get the best out of the group of players because the talent is there.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, moving on to West Ham versus Chelsea. Now, this is a... Would you call it a London derby? I think you call it a London derby.
I'd say it is a London derby.
It's hard to tell. One's north and, it's still, I'd say it's a London derby. Anyway, Chelsea walked away with a 1-0 victory after Werner claimed his first Premier League goal since the 2-0 victory against Newcastle on the 15th of February to end his goal drought for the second time, I believe, this season that he's ended a goal drought. What do you think about Werner this season? Do you think he's had a good season? Because I see he's played 48 fixtures and he's only scored 11 goals. For a player of his calibre, I don't think it's an excellent return. I think it's been very mediocre at best. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts on Timo Werner is that he has periods where he looks confident and it looks like the Timo Werner that we signed. Mm-hmm. But other times, you'll see his first touch letting him down, his finishing. I mean, we've all seen what happens there. But personally, what I'd say is that he's still got, I think it's 20 goal contributions, 7 penalties won or something this season, which isn't a terrible return. It's not a good return.
No,
but it's not a terrible return. And I do think that, especially with his goal against West Ham, going into the Real Madrid game in midweek, it will give him some confidence. And hopefully, we've been saying it as Chelsea fans all season, when Timo Werner does score, that it will bring him some confidence. But in the highlights when he scored, the relief on his face when he scored, it was like he just had a weight lifted off his shoulders. And the hold-up play before the goal as well was top draw. So although Werner's return in the stats isn't as much as maybe it should be, or it definitely should be for a player of his stature, it definitely could be worse. Like, namely, Roberto Firmino of Liverpool. You could argue is a similar situation. Maybe he doesn't get on the score sheet as much as you'd want him to, but still has a very significant contribution, maybe not in terms of the numbers, but the flow of the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think his contribution overall it's been okay, I guess. But you want him more as a clinical finisher. I mean, that's what he was brought in to do.
Oh, for sure.
To score goals. And I think the reason that Chelsea bought him and what he's actually produced isn't what they really wanted. But at the end of the day, Chelsea is still in 4th place, and you didn't have an incredible start to the season either. So since Tuchel's come in, you picked up and you've done really well.
Yeah.
Another thing that happened in this first half that I want to touch upon, because I know what my thoughts of it are, and I know what your thoughts of it are the penalty shout from West Ham when it bounced off of what I'd say was the upper inside arm of Cesar Azpilicueta. I can't say his name, but I know your thoughts are a little bit different to mine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like I'm trying to be biased here, but I don't think the camera angle for VAR was conclusive. Because, I mean, you saw when I paused it on the frame that it hit Azpilicueta. You can't tell whether it's his chest or his arm.
It's very hard. It's a very hard one to
It
pick
definitely
out.
hit his shirt, so it is very likely his upper arm, but equally as likely his chest, which I think is what saved him. I think it was that uncertainty is what definitely saved him if it did in fact hit his arm. But yeah, I think as well, in terms of the flow of the game and the rest of the season in general, from a Chelsea perspective, it is amazing that it wasn't given. Because had West Ham been given the penalty there, they might have felt like with that penalty they could have come out of the game with something. But also you've got to look at the chances that Chelsea have missed in that game. Abraham in the dying moments, which I'd say was a bit too high for him to score, to reach the cross. But
also
from
Werner
2
in
yards
that
out,
second
you'd
half.
argue it. Werner as well on the rebound from Mason Mount's shot.
Can we just give credit to Mason Mount in that game, because despite not scoring,
Fantastic.
I think he had an incredible game. I think he's been in good form for the most part of his second half of the season, to be honest.
Personally, I'd say he's the first name on the team sheet right now.
Yeah, I think he's doing really well recently.
His
nice to
quality is just undeniable. Because the reason I'd say it is, although he'll have games where he doesn't get an amazing assist or he doesn't score a screamer, but which we know he is capable of. He did it against Liverpool. But you have these games where he really does the dirty work, and a big part of Chelsea's game recently is defending from the front, and that is something that Mason Mount does absolutely spot on. And it's really noticeable when you lose a player of Mount's energy and replace him with someone that it's not the same. The dynamic of the press is not the same.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and I think Mason Mount, as I say, deserves a lot of commendation, because I think he's been an important cog in the system for Chelsea in this latter half of the season. Moving on to the second half, again there was controversy with the sending off. Now,
yeah, I hope that gets rescinded. To be honest,
so do
with you.
I. I mean, looking on first analysis when I first watched it yesterday, I'd have said it was a red card definitely. But looking back on highlights and from different angles and reverse angles and whatnot, I don't think there's anything he can really do. To be honest, he loses his back footing. He starts to slip. He looks like he tries to pull his leg away from it. I think the only other option he has, aside from making contact, is to injure himself in his fall. And I don't think any player in the world would pick injuring themselves over somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, the argument that I've heard a lot of people making is you can't stop momentum. His foot, he initiated the action, and his foot then has to go somewhere. He can't just put his foot nowhere. That's not how momentum works. For the momentum of his foot to stop, he'd have to hit a little brick wall, which you're not going to find in the middle of a football field. And we've seen it too many times this season with VAR. They freeze a frame of a point of contact, but they really don't consider how it got to that frame. Namely, Thiago Silva's sending off against West Brom. And there's been plenty of other challenges this season where they'll freeze it on the frame of the point of contact with the challenge, but they really don't take into account that their foot really just has nowhere else to go.
It's more like clickbait, to be fair, when they do that. I mean, if you say it's a controversial sending off, but then you just show like two players staring at each other, it's like, but if you show the point of contact, everyone's going to click it and think, "Ooh, that looks nasty. Why is this controversial?" And it's clickbait, it's to get the viewers in. It's understandable, but I do agree with what you say. It doesn't show the whole picture. It doesn't show the build-up. It doesn't show how that moment comes around.
Yeah, personally, I think VAR needs scrapping. Until there's a better way of implementing it in the game, I don't think it should be in the game. And it's quite simple. Because incidents like that, not only do they change matches, they can change seasons. Like, could you imagine if Balbuena was a key player in the side of West Ham, like a really key player who was really in form, and they lose him to that? Like, I'd say that challenge is a yellow card at best. Granted, it was a late challenge. There's no denying that, but it's not a sending off. There was no malicious intent. He tried to get out of the way of it.
Yeah, definitely. But all in all, I think it's a big 6-pointer for Chelsea, really. As it takes them 3 points clear of West Ham. who are their closest competitors right now. And it really piles that pressure on Leicester, which I know you talked about briefly earlier before we started this.
They have to win their game in hand.
They do. They definitely have to win it. And the pressure is piling. Anyway, moving on to the next game, we have Sheffield United, best team in the Premier League, and their 1-0 victory against Brighton. Now, this is our first win in like 7 fixtures or something, so, and our top scorer, David McGoldrick, I think it's his 7th goal of the season. I know it isn't a massive, it's not like, Jamie Vardy's got 20 odd goals or whatever, but you have to remember, we've only scored like 17 or 18 goals.
Can I just stop you there? McGoldrick scored against someone that isn't Chelsea?
Yes, he scored a few goals this season. And to be fair, I think it took him about this long last season to get his first goal. And I think that was against Chelsea, actually. I'm pretty sure it was 2. Twice as well, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was 2.
Yeah, I think it was 2. I remember when we played Brighton away last season, I remember he had like 2 or 3 near enough easy-ish opportunities. And it reminds me a lot of Werner, is he keeps missing these open nets. But to be fair, I think we've had a really poor season. I think anybody who denies we've had a poor season is lying to themselves, because we've had a very poor season. It's our first win since Chris Wilder departed the club, which is it's looking up for us.
Big.
I guess it's momentum.
It's big.
Hopefully, this can build a little bit of momentum.
Yeah, but I'd say, especially building on it being a poor season for you guys, that last season, like how high up in the table, and granted it could be second season syndrome this season, but I'd say, especially comparing the 2 seasons side by side, it looks like this season was just an absolute freak, because especially looking at how just the table in general, you were never a team that conceded a lot of goals under Chris Wilder.
I think there's 3 main contributing factors to why our season isn't as good as last season. And I think second season syndrome is just an excuse people make. I understand the concept, but I don't think that's a problem. I don't think it's been... Because I think second season syndrome comes from being too settled in the position you're in. And I don't think that's what it is. I think the big contributing factors to why we're not as good as we were last season are first a goalkeeper choice. I'm not saying Ramsdale's a bad keeper. I'm not putting anything on him saying he shouldn't be here, whatever.
Henderson was outstanding.
I think Henderson is a different kind of goalkeeper that we never had. And I think without him, we'd have conceded a lot more goals than we did.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's my first contributing factor. My second one is the amount of injuries that we have. Because we have had a lot of injuries, especially defensively. We've had points where we've been playing on our full-backs. We play 3 at the back, centre-backs. We've been playing full-backs in defence. We've even been dropping some midfielders back into defence because we don't have that depth in defence. Like, we had Egan injured and sent off a few times. We've had O'Connell out for like 90% of the season. More than that, we've had him out since the first game. He's still not returned. We've had Sander Berg out since December. Massive part in midfield. We're not been scoring goals. You know how I feel about McBurney and Brewster. I think you should get rid of him, but I guess we'll see. Anyway, as for Brighton, this is now 4 games without a win for Brighton, having drawn 2 of the last 4 and losing 2 of the last 4. Both draws being 0-0, so the goal return isn't very good either. And Brighton are in a position now where they're only 7 points clear of Fulham, and Fulham are a very up and down sort of team. They might beat a team, they might lose, they might beat. They had that little bit of momentum a few games ago where they were picking up a few wins, and then they started losing a few, and then they won recently. But Brighton have still got to play at home to West Ham and Arsenal, and still have to play Manchester City also. It might be West Ham and Man City at home and Arsenal away actually. But we still have to play 3 of the top 10 teams in their remaining 5 fixtures. So it's not looking very promising for them. However, as I say, with West Brom and Fulham also not looking like very promising teams, for Brighton it might just about be safe, perhaps. It's going to be very entertaining. It's going to be an interesting end to this season.
For sure. Brighton are a well-organised team as well.
They are. I do like Brighton. I think we've got one of the nicest stadiums in the league as well. To be honest, I know it's very new, but it is a very very nice stadium. It's nice to look at. It's a nice stadium to go to.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever been.
What do you think Brighton should do from here then to survive in the Premier League? Let's say Fulham
More
were
of the
to win a
same.
few games.
More of the same. Even though they did lose to bottom place, when they played against Chelsea, they were well organised. They actually, if anything, looked more dangerous than we did. So I'd say just more of the same. They've been well drilled defensively. That's not what the problem is. I feel like they now just need to have some creativity and really solidify themselves as a Premier League team.
Yeah. So, moving on to Wolves against Burnley, which I believe was the first game yesterday. Now, I can say for me personally, this is something that I didn't see coming, and I think most people can say that. I think probably all people can say that. You'll still get a few who'll be like, oh yeah, I said that had happened, but, did you? So this is Chris Wood's first hat-trick in nearly 8 years. That's nearly a decade since he last scored a hat-trick in a game. And it was the first half hat-trick as well. And they were very well taken goals. And Burnley should have probably scored more than that, as they did have Matej Vidra, had a one-on-one opportunity and just put it a little bit too high in the first half. But I think Wolves were really off the pace this weekend, really off the mark. I don't think they were anywhere near as good as they've been in recent performances. And I know they've had a pretty mediocre season. It's not been too outstanding, Last season we finished 7th, and this season it's been kind of underwhelming. But by their current performances, I think this is a massive dent in what they want to build in terms of momentum. And I think the biggest problem for them is what you mentioned to me earlier, is they're really missing Raul Jimenez. It's that lack of goal threat, isn't it, going forward?
Yeah, you look at their squad recently and you just can't really see where the goals are going to be coming from. The Raul Jimenez was such a established striker in the Premier League. You can't really see where it's coming from anymore.
Yeah, and as for Burnley, take nothing away from their performance. They were dominant start to finish. I think that's probably the most entertaining game I watched this weekend. It was a really, really good hat-trick from Chris Wood, and that finish from Ashley Westwood was on fire. But Wolves kept making defensive mistakes. Like Saiz gave a ball away for the 4th goal, or Traore gave a ball away for the 2nd goal. Little mistakes like this, just passing plays, it's simple passing, just pass it to the player in front of you. Stop trying to be fancy, stop trying to do things in your own defensive area that you shouldn't be doing and losing possession. Just keep it, especially when you're already losing. Like for that 4th goal, I know you're 3-0 down, there's not long left, but when you're already losing by 3 goals to a side who are lower than you in the table, at home as well, don't be messing about with it in your own defensive area. Get rid. Just get rid. So,
I mean,
what do you think
happens
the move is
a lot
for
as
Wolves?
well.
What do you think Wolves should do from here?
Wolves. I mean, we all know Wolves are probably one of the teams that is labelled as the best of the rest. But they are struggling. And it's clear to see they're down in 12th place. I believe they were in 7th last season, which is a big drop. 41 points is a really underwhelming season for Wolves. Now, that especially can definitely be put down to lack of goal-scoring talent, with the very notable absence of Raul Jimenez for a huge chunk of the season, which, it's not ideal without having a well-established number 9 on the field. You see a lot of teams struggle from that, like Tottenham when Harry Kane gets injured. You see the same sort of problem. And I think what they do from here, defensively, as weird as it sounds with them losing 4-0 to Burnley, is that they are a well-established defensively. They just really need to maybe think of getting in some more goal scorers, because it's clear that if they're missing their main man, that they're not really doing much. But then defensively, they have the likes of Connor Cody. They got an international goalkeeper in Rui Patricio. Like, it's not a bad bunch of players. It's just a lack of goal scoring talent for me.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of Premier League teams like, to be honest. It's just a clinical finisher. As you mentioned with Raul Jimenez or Harry Kane or maybe you have Mo Salah, you have some players, Jamie Vardy, Calvert-Lewin. But I think especially your lower teams, Chelsea might be a bit of an exception, but especially your lower teams, like your clinical finisher. Like we have David McGoldrick, but he's not clinical. We've got so many strikers in our team, not many score. Brighton don't really have many goal scorers. Burnley, Wolves, and I think a lot of teams need to look out and try and find this sort of talent. I think a lot of teams should look for homegrown talent, to be honest. Give your youth an opportunity.
I mean, we've seen a lot of teams recently giving opportunities, say, youth players. You even see people coming through at teams like Arsenal, with Smith Rowe coming through, notably because Saka.
Yeah, Saka, Martinelli.
Like, you see it a lot. Chelsea, famously last season, giving first-team debuts to who knows how many players.
To be fair,
and you see players...
In their defence, Chelsea did have an embargo, meaning they couldn't buy any players anyway.
Oh, yeah. But that's what I mean. Sometimes things like a transfer embargo, or in Wolves' case, the injury to Raul Jimenez, it's a blessing in disguise, because you see players for Chelsea like Mason Mount, Reece James, becoming staple figures of the first team. So, you never know in Wolves. Like, there could be someone there that could help, but by the same token, maybe they're not ready. We don't know what's going on inside the team.
Yeah. And moving on to our next game. Does anybody really want to talk about this? Leeds against Man United? I guess they do. But it was very boring, wasn't it? From what I saw, just nothing happened in the game. Just neither team could hit the target. It was end to end, I guess, but neither team could hit the target. There was that late chance. Was it Rafinha maybe? Late chance for it might not have been Rafinha. I can't remember. Late chance to Leeds. Scoops just sort of dips just behind the back post. That's about the best I saw all game. I mean, the only really talking point I can pick out is when the ball struck Luke Shaw's arm. And I know a lot of people are saying he was blindsided, but when you watch it back in a slow motion, you can see the Leeds player gets out of the way at least a good second and a half before it actually hits his arm. Okay, it doesn't stick his arm out, but I'd say that's still a handball and should have still been a penalty.
There's a lot of inconsistencies with VAR and handballs and a load, which just further gives people the excuse to be like, well, it's not consistent. Well, VAR face value is brought into the game to bring consistency, but if anything, it's brought more inconsistency. Because there with VAR there needs to be a line, but there doesn't seem to be a clear, definitive line.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think VAR is the right way forward. Like I say, I think, like you said, I think you should just scrap it. I think before VAR, when things seem more natural, you still get a little bit of bias towards some of the bigger teams in the league, but things were more natural. Things were given more naturally. Things weren't given offside for a shoelace. Things were given offside for half a centimetre offside. It was more natural. The game was more fluid. It didn't have to stop and have to check for 10 minutes on VAR every week. It was more entertaining. Yeah, I mean, Leeds for me have been the surprise package this season. They've been the team to watch in my opinion. And I don't like saying that because I don't like Leeds, but they have been the team to watch, and the entertainment in the league. Where you look at the fixture, regardless of who they're playing, and you're like, there's going to be goals in that game. I want to watch this game. all right, this one was a bit of an exception. It was 0-0. It's a bit mediocre, a bit boring, but you get that sometimes. It's like you mentioned to me earlier. Leeds and Man United had the most goal involvements all season. This had 0-0 written all over it, didn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, what you've also got to say about Leeds is the way they set up. It has goals written all over it. They play in a 4-1-4-1 formation, so there's not a huge amount of defensive cover. It's a very attacking setup, and that in some cases allows them to score more goals. But by the same token, the lack of defensive cover can come back to bite them, and they will also concede a lot of goals. It's one of those tactics where it is rewarding and it's exciting. I think we could all agree. Leeds have been exciting to watch this season for that reason. You know there's going to be goals most of the time, but you don't know where they're going to be coming from. You don't know who's going to be scoring them, and who's going to come out on top. But you just know that there'll be goals. Or at the very least, excitement.
And I guess that's one of the most exciting things about Leeds, isn't it? Is they do get goals from all over the pitch. Again, I can relate to us last season being more or less the same. We didn't have preferred goal scorers, and we didn't score that many goals, but we were entertaining to watch. And it seems to be the same for Leeds this season, just with more goals.
Yeah, I can agree with that one.
But I guess the biggest gift this season is also the biggest downfall, because they do score a lot of goals, but we also concede a lot of goals. I think if they were to cut out the goals that they concede and they were to get a more solid defence, they'd be a top 6 side this season.
Oh yeah, for sure, certainly. But I think a lot of people kind of saw it coming when they came up to the Premier League with the way that they played in the Championship. You could just feel it. I don't know why. I could just feel that Leeds were going to be in this mid-table. Obviously not with as many goals scored and conceded. But
when I did my prediction at the start of the season, I think I had Leeds for 13th or something like that, 12 for 13. So I had them in a fairly high mid-table finishing team. You know, I didn't have them anywhere low down.
No,
and
bettering your
if I remember
expectations.
correctly, I had us like 16th or something. So better than what we are, but I didn't have high hopes for us this season.
Yeah.
But I did think Chelsea were going to win the league. I won't lie.
Well, look what happened to that one.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, Manchester United do remain 8 points ahead of Leicester, who do have a game in hand against Crystal Palace this evening. While Leeds are in 9th place and don't look like they're going to get top 6, but also don't look like they're going to be threatened by a mid-table. It's just going to be a high mid-table finish, isn't it? I think if they can finish the season with good momentum and go into next season, make the right transfers and whatnot, bring the right players, and I think they'll make a strong case to top 6 next year. But also, on the other hand, it could go the complete opposite way like it did for us, and they could have that second season syndrome and just end up bottling it. Which I wouldn't mind seeing. But, you know, I guess we'll see what happens, won't we?
Yeah. Definitely an interesting one. It's always interesting when you see a team come up and do so well. It's interesting to see whether it's a one-off or whether they could keep that level.
Oh, yeah,
with a manager as tactically gifted as Marcelo Bielsa, you can't put it past them. But
he's an incredible person, especially as a footballer.
Yeah,
he is. He's a very. I've got a lot of time for Marcelo Bielsa. I mean, in our season where we got promoted, Leeds played Aston Villa, and Leeds needed to beat Aston Villa to keep up with us in a promotion race. And if it wasn't for Marcelo Bielsa, we probably would have won the game. I don't know if anybody remembers, it was a very controversial event where there was a Villa player down for so long and pretty much everyone had stopped playing and Leeds just went and scored anyway. And Bielsa went mental at his players and literally told them to let Villa just walk through and tap it in. And everybody except for one player, and it was Pontus Jansson, I think it was kicking off about it, who incidentally was sold the following summer, you know, despite being one of their players of the season. You know, and you can tell he'd fallen out with the manager over that. You know, and that played a big part in our promotion campaign. But I've got a lot of time for Bielsa because you don't get very many honest managers out there anymore who do anything like that. Because again, like last season when we played Aston Villa and the ball was definitely over the line, the watch didn't go off, it wasn't given, but every single player in that Villa team, the manager, everyone in the staff, quiet. Nobody said a word. Just sat there quietly, didn't say anything. But yet when it happened to them the season before, they were happy to like kick off about a controversial decision. Like, you know, that's not even saying Dean Smith wasn't as noble as somebody like Bielsa was. If that was Bielsa in that same situation where the goal was over, he'd have turned around and said, yeah, it was over the line. You know, he wouldn't lie about it. That's why I like Bielsa. He's an honest person. I think the world needs more honest people.
Yeah, certainly.
Moving on to Aston Villa West Brom. East Midlands derby. Very entertaining game as well. It wasn't a one-sided affair where the other team just sort of got back into it. It was like an end-to-end game where one team goes ahead, the other team comes back and then goes ahead, and then a very late dramatic equaliser. And it started off a penalty decision, which was a penalty. Ross Barkley was brought down by who was he brought down by? By Konza. Sorry, he wasn't. He was brought down by I don't know. I thought I'd written it down. No, he was brought down in the box. It was definitely a penalty though, and the penalty was dispatched very well by Anwar El Ghazi. Sent Sam Johnston the wrong way, and it was a really tidy finish.
And then you've got West Brom obviously coming back, and getting their 2 goals. Tyrone Mings' own goal, you've got to say, was unfortunate. I would say
definitely.
it is one of those where, as a centre back, you do feel like you have to throw yourself in front of it, and in doing so, he's wrong-footed his own goalkeeper.
It reminds me a little bit of that Silva sending off a few weeks ago for Chelsea.
Yeah, no. You just have, as a centre back, you have to throw yourself at it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if he didn't throw himself at that goal, he wouldn't be doing his job. Unfortunately, Silva followed through and he gave away the foul and got himself sent off for it. But again, I agree, this is the same situation. A good defender throws himself at the ball, he puts himself in the way, stops it from getting through to goal. Alright, unfortunate on his behalf, it ends up in the back of the net. But if he didn't throw himself in the way, he wouldn't be doing his job, would he?
Yeah, because you, as a football fan as well, if your centre back doesn't throw himself in front of that ball, you're looking at them asking them to get dropped.
Yeah. You're asking questions of why they're not doing what they're supposed to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it's like, it's one of those that is very unfortunate. I believe it hit his studs as well, so he was only a narrow margin off actually blocking the shot. Unfortunately, wrong-footed Emiliano Martinez, who has been a very good signing for them this season.
He's been a solid goalkeeper this season.
Obviously, the only other goal he conceded this game was the penalty to Matheus Pereira. But again, when you're a goalkeeper, the pressure isn't on you when it's a penalty. People expect the striker to score. You're the hero if you save it, but no one really blames you if
I've
you
always
concede
disagreed with something when it comes to penalties. They've always said it's 50-50 for the goalkeeper and striker, and I disagree. I think it's 50-50 for the striker, either hits the target or he doesn't. For a goalkeeper, I think your chances are a lot slimmer than that. I think you can go the right way and not save it. You know, you can go the right way and save it. But if you don't go the right way, you don't save it regardless. If it missed, that's on them. But if it's on target, it goes in. You know, I think it's harder for a goalkeeper to save a penalty than it is for a striker to score it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Which is why the pressure's on the striker to score it. Because if a goalkeeper saves it, they're the hero. They've against the odds saved the penalty. Which obviously some strikers do have patterns to where they put the penalties. Goalkeepers obviously do their homework before the games, see what the patterns are. Because you see a lot of players get caught out, notably Jorginho in the middle of the season with his little hop, skip and a jump in his run-up, which I personally disagree with. But you see goalkeepers with Jorginho, they wait because they know that Jorginho is waiting for them to make the first move. So the way you counter that is by not making the first move. And then it's up to Jorginho to then counter them. So it's definitely a mind game, but as a goalkeeper, you're not expected to say penalties. So I'd say, despite it being a 2-2 draw, not a bad performance by Martinez.
Not
But
at
I'd say
all.
the biggest talking point of the game, definitely I'd say, is Davis, his goal in the 92nd minute. What
Yeah,
went on
before
there?
we get on to that, again, talking about that Tyrone Mings on goal, the slip from Konza was very costly, and it's one of them mistakes.
Oh
It
yeah,
can't be put on him because let's be honest, Konza had a pretty bad game that game, to be honest. But it wasn't his fault for that second goal. Players slip, everybody slips, it happens. But it was Konza's fault for the first goal after he brought down Maitland-Niles. And I think it was minimal contact, and I feel like it's a little bit harsh done by. It's like you were telling me, for that penalty for West Brom, there's contact and you got to give it. The intention you have to give it is very, very minimal. But you have to give it because the intention's there.
yeah. It's one of those that with VAR it's soft, but the line has to be drawn somewhere. There's contact, the player went down. It's not a lot else you
Yeah, I
can do.
mean, in this day and age, from this season onwards, you're not allowed to make any sort of a challenge in the box anyway. So any contact in the box does result in a penalty. But yeah,
I think
as
that's
you
terrible.
say, I think the biggest talking point is definitely the late equaliser from Villa.
Yeah. It's like you mentioned in the Wolves game about how players just weren't clearing their lines, trying to do too much in defence, and the mistake defensively by Kyle Bartley and Sam Johnson, lack of communication. But Bartley should really, in my opinion, if the goalkeeper hasn't come for it, which I think he should have, and I think we can agree that the goalkeeper should have called and should have come for it. But as the centre back, if the keeper doesn't come, you've just got to get rid of that.
Yeah,
Especially in the
totally.
92nd minute when you're 2-1 up, you get rid of that ball. You do not try and chest that or do anything funny. You just
I mean,
put your boot through it.
going back to communication is something that can relate to any sort of sport. I mean, it can relate to any situation in the world, to be fair. I mean, vocal communication is
100%.
key. Especially in football, it's key. For them, I think that's their problem. I think Bartley Chessex is expecting the goalkeeper to come and collect it, and the goalkeeper's expecting him to clear it. And that lack of vocal communication between the two ends up with an easy finish for Keenan Davis. And don't get me wrong, it's still a little bit of difficulty to loop it over the goalkeeper, but he gets himself in there unnoticed and finishes it well. What I have to say is the player who's marking Davis should have done better to be goal side of him and just let him free. But yeah, that lack of vocal communication definitely cost West Brom. Maybe even cost West Brom this season, to be honest. They're now 9 points adrift, I believe. That would have taken them up to 7 points, which is still quite far off, but it still puts them within a shout of safety. Now, being 9 points off with 5 games left isn't a promising position to be in. And talking about Leeds again, we said they're the most entertaining team to watch and they score a lot of goals. That's who West Brom played last game of the season. I know it's away from home. I'm not entirely sure who the rest of the games are this season, but it's not looking very promising for them to stay up. But I think all in all, West Brom have been pretty decent in the latter half this season. But they
have a very tough run in. They've got Wolves, and then they've got Arsenal and Liverpool, and then West Ham, and then
Leeds. Not
promising, that is not a promising run in for them. Because you'd be expecting Wolves to try and just get some momentum for the end of the season.
Yeah, and
likewise with Arsenal.
That's another derby match, Wolves and West Brom. I think Wolves will want to send West Brom down in the next fixture, and I think they'll be able to do that. If Brighton get as much as a point, and West Brom do lose, then West Brom will be relegated.
Yeah, and then you've got Arsenal trying to get some momentum for the end of the season. You'll have Liverpool and West Ham in the thick of the top four race.
They'll be in all four.
They'll be giving everything to beat West Brom. But likewise, if West Brom are already relegated by them, they might just turn up to spoil the party. You never know. You have occasions like that.
Yeah.
They have nothing to play for. They might just throw everything they can at those two fixtures.
The momentum going into next season, of course.
And then, like you say, you've got the Leeds versus West Brom clash at the final day of the season. But Ellen Road's not an easy place to go.
Not at all. Not at all. Anyway, moving on to our final game from this weekend in the Premier League is tonight's fixture between Leicester City and Crystal Palace, which kicks off in about 15 minutes. Now, we have some team news here. We have Kasper Schmeichel playing alongside Fofana, Evans and Soyuncu in defence. Castagne, is that how you say this? And Didi, Tielemans, Thomas, Maddison, Vardy and Iheanacho. While the away side are lining up with Guaita in goal, Patrick Van Aanholt, Dan, Coyote, Ward, Ayew, Milivojevic, that's a hard one to say, Riedewald, Easy, Zaha and Benteke. So looking at this fixture, I think Leicester definitely need to win this for their season. I think the pressure is definitely getting to them.
Because the pressure's on, I think Leicester, pressure makes diamonds. But it can also turn the same diamonds into dust. But I think with this game, I think pressure makes diamonds here for Leicester. Because they have been consistently...
Who said that quote? Sorry?
No idea.
No idea. I think I'm going to Google that. I think that might do on that stadium, you know. Diamonds can make dust, but we can make whatever you said.
But you look at Leicester's squad, you've got Ndidi and Tielemans in the middle of the park, absolutely outstanding. You've got Schmeichel, who's been a very good goalkeeper. You've got Maddison, Vardy, Iheanacho. They've been a very good front three. Especially Iheanacho with the amount of goals he's been scoring recently. It's very hard to see, despite there being strengths in Crystal Palace's team, with Eze, who has been a very good signing in my opinion. Zaha, you've always got to look out for.
From playing mid-table to lower-end Championship football last season for QPR to now playing mid-table football in the Premier League, and he's got that fancy footwork as well, hasn't he? It's always fun to watch as he plays. He's got that fancy footwork. He can take players on. He likes that finishing touch sometimes, but I think he's as a
with experience it will come.
I think in a few years he'll be the replacement that Crystal Palace need for Wilfried Zaha.
But yeah, I can only see Leicester taking this because they need to win this game.
Oh yeah, 100% need to win this game.
Leicester have consistently been one of the best teams in the country for a while now. So I think Leicester take the points here.
Yeah, and I think Leicester at this point, you'd have to say definitely a top six side. They're not the big six, they're not the traditional big six, but they're definitely a top six side in this day and age.
Yeah. No, they've definitely been a force to be reckoned with in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, we got top six last season. I think we got it the season before as well. They're going to get it this season. They won the Premier League not too long ago, you know. In the past 5 or 6 years or so, they've been a very good, consistent top six side. I think they've only had one season outside of the top six since they won the league. So, in return, I think Leicester are a really good team. I think they're a very scary team to play against. And I think they'll probably hold out and finish third, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think so too. It's very hard for me to see them dropping so many points.
Yeah, of course. And Crystal Palace, on the other hand, don't really have anything to play for at this point. They're not going to get relegated. They're not going to finish top six. You know, for them, it's just a point of whether they want to build momentum or if they're happy to just play out the rest of the season, I guess.
Yeah. And then, obviously, you've got Leicester, who aren't the big six, traditional big six. But then you see a lot of the traditional big six aren't really in the top six anymore. You've also got the Champions League fixtures that are going on. You don't see many of the traditional top six amongst those, do you?
No, you don't. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Premier League. So we're briefly going to talk over the Championship, League 1, League 2 and National League over the next little bit. So we're going to start off with the first fixture that comes up on Google, which was Bournemouth and Brentford. Now, Brentford are having a very good season, and despite having a man sent off, still managed to take the 1-0 victory. And actually, they were really dominant in this game, which is kind of surprising to say that they started the fixture beneath Bournemouth. Bournemouth only taking 4 shots of Brentford's 18. It's a massively dominant performance from Brentford, and despite not scoring this weekend, you've got to say Ivan Toney has been an incredible player, an incredible signing from Peterborough for Brentford this season. I'm not entirely sure how many goals he scored, but I'm pretty sure he's top scorer in the league. You know what? We'll Google it. Never hurts to Google it, does it?
Never.
Ivan Toney scored 29 goals. He is the Championship's leading scorer with 29 goals this season. Now, if Brentford can get promoted and hold on to Ivan Toney as well, you know, he's looking like he's going to be a really, really good addition to the Premier League for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on, Norwich won 3-1 at QPR and now sit 5 points clear of second place Watford with only 2 games left. I think it's safe to say at this point that Norwich are going to win the league again. The only issue I have for Norwich is whenever they get promoted, they come down bottom of the league every season.
Although looking at Norwich's fixtures, they got Reading and Barnsley both in the top.
Yeah, both in that mix. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it could all go to trash for them, but I think they'll hold it out.
But in saying that, Watford have got Brentford and Swansea.
Yeah, that's also not an easy few fixtures going forward. Anyway, moving on. Nottingham Forest drew 1-1 with Stoke. As far as I'm aware, it's just a mid-table clash. I don't think there's... I mean, Forest aren't going down at this point. Stoke aren't going on. It's just a mid-table 1-1 draw. Blackburn hammered Huddersfield by 5-2. Adam Armstrong with a hat-trick. He's a very good player as well. I think he must probably be the second top scorer in the league. Every time I look at their score sheet, if they scored, he's always on the score sheet, you know. He scores a lot of goals. Again, it's just a mediocre mid-table finish for them. And I know Huddersfield, in recent performances, got a couple of wins. They won away to QPR recently. They won away to Forest and drew with Rotherham. So they've been picking up a few points lately, here and there, you know. Which is good for them. They've been escaping that relegation zone. Which is now Derby, who are kind of in trouble right now. And speaking of Derby, they were winning with not very much time left against Birmingham and lost 2-1 at home. Bottom of the league clash there because Birmingham could have quite easily fallen back into that mix not too long ago, but they've done well to recover their season and escape relegation. But Derby are on 43 points and sitting 4 points clear of Rotherham, who have 2 games in hand over Derby and have 4 fixtures left in total. So it's not looking good for Derby right now, is it?
Yeah, not at all. Derby, they're living dangerously.
Very.
It's just not. It's not where you'd want to be, especially with them being close to promotion not so long ago.
I think it's only last season they were top 6 again. Maybe it was the
season before under Frank Lampard. But yeah, no, you see a lot of teams, they fluctuate a lot in the championship. Because you see so many teams, you see teams go down and really stay down.
Yeah.
Notably Stoke recently being mid-table in the championship, having gone down from the Premier League.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are expecting Stoke to do really well and go straight back up, and it hasn't really worked out for them. They've been in the Championship for what, 3 years now? 4 years? 4 years, I think.
Yeah, no. You've notably got Norwich, Watford, like teams that just you wouldn't have seen going down realistically as well, like Bournemouth
I
as
mean,
well.
Watford I
I
wouldn't.
can see them going up.
I'd have thought Bournemouth would have gone down eventually, and Norwich always, every time we go up, they look like they're going to go down again. But Watford were a surprise package for me last season. I definitely didn't see that coming. The season before, was it the 2018-19 season, wasn't it? We finished 8th, got through to the final at Wembley, the FA Cup. I think we lost to Man City, was it, I think? I don't know, it's a while ago now. But yeah, after a season like that, to then go and bottle it and be bottom of the league for the most part of the season, I didn't see that coming. But they've done really well this season to recover it. Very well indeed. So on to the next game. Barnsley beat Rotherham to secure their playoff place, which is an incredible season for them considering at Christmas, I'm not entirely sure where they were, but they weren't anywhere near the top 6 like they are now. And now they're firmly sitting in 6th. They could finish anywhere as high as 3rd yet. They're only a point behind 3rd. Although Brentford do have a game in hand against Rotherham.
Yeah, and then you see Barnsley have also played Chelsea twice this season, I believe. And I feel like if they do go up, it's hard to tell where they'd finish. Because they did make life difficult for Chelsea, and they were actually playing football.
To be fair though, when smaller teams play against bigger teams in cup fixtures, they do like to take the game too, and they want to prove something. They want to. I mean, look at MK Dons about 10 years ago. 100%. So they played a good Manchester United side, who I think won the league the same season actually, and beat them 4-0 in the Carabao Cup. You know, when MK Dons were a League One side, then it's like it does happen from time to time. But yeah, I don't think Barnsley have a current depth or are prepared currently with a squad for the Premier League if they do go up. Although, having said that, teams do surprise you and they might make the right signings, or they might just have a standout player who just stands out and just does really well. You never know. But I don't think Barnsley are currently prepared for Premier League football. But it would be nice to see them get promoted. It's nice to see these teams that don't usually have that opportunity to take that opportunity. But looking at Rotherham, they have 4 games left. Granted, they still have to play in 3 of them away against Brentford, Luton and Cardiff, but also play Blackburn at home. Now, they're only 4 points off of safety, and they have 2 games in hand over anybody else around them. Do you think they'll stay up? Do you think they stand a chance?
I think with the games in hand, you've got to consider it likely that they could do it.
It would take one win for them to get back in the mix, to be fair.
Because all of a sudden, anything can happen. If you win those 2 games in hand, it's quite hard to see them going down.
Definitely. So Coventry lost 1-0 at home to Preston. Again, it's just another mediocre mid-table finish for Preston, and Coventry aren't threatened by relegation anymore. They've had a pretty good season back in the Championship. It's been a while coming for them to get back in the Championship, and they've finally done it, and they've had a pretty decent season. Hopefully they'll build on that next season. Preston, I know, have had a pretty disappointing season by their standards. They started off near the top, ended up about 20th, and now they're like 14th or something, but Now, the next game, I really like what Neil Warnock said. He urges players on to play even better than they usually do, to put 110% in so they can relegate Sheffield Wednesday. As a Sheffield United fan, like Warnock is, that's obviously something he'd want to do. But I'm glad Sheffield Wednesday aren't relegated yet. Because I want a derby match next season. I want to play Wednesday. I want to beat Wednesday twice. So, I'd rather they stayed up. And to be fair, I do like the manager, Darren Moore. I've always liked Darren Moore. He's a good friend of Chris Wilder's too. I know Wilder's no longer with us, but he's always seemed a very honest manager. He was good at West Brom. I'm not really sure why they sacked him, to be honest. He was doing well at Doncaster, and I wish him all the best, I guess, despite the fact that he manages Wednesday. But yes, Sheffield Wednesday are now 4 points adrift of safety with only 2 games remaining, and they're not promising fixtures either. They play We play at home to Nottingham Forest, which Nottingham Forest don't really have anything to play for. And their local rival of Nottingham Forest is Derby County, and they would want to send Derby County down, so they might just let Sheffield Wednesday win that. But then that'd take it down to the last game of the season where Wednesday play away to Derby, which would make it a really interesting final day. Oh, and just to make things even more interesting is I have a good friend of mine who's a Wednesday fan whose birthday is the same day they play Derby.
That'd be a very interesting final day.
Interesting birthday
for sure.
Next team was Watford beat Millwall 1-0, and congratulations to Watford on securing promotion with this victory. Millwall, again, just a mid-table finish. I think we're a mid-table side at this point. Cardiff beat Wycombe 2-1. Wycombe did equalise after going 1-0 down. Kiefer Moore gave Cardiff the lead, and then he reclaimed that lead before Volks got sent off in the 95th minute. Cardiff currently 8th in the table, and looks like they'll finish 8th. And Wycombe are relegated with that. Commiserations to Wycombe. I mean, they're technically not, but they have a 13-goal deficit to overturn, and they'd have to win both games as well. And hope that Derby lose both. But I'd say they're probably relegated at this point. So Reading and Swansea finish 2-2. Swansea have bottled it. You know, Swansea in the last few games have had the opportunity to go for promotion, and they've had a 2-2 draw at Reading, a 1-0 defeat at home to QPR, a 2-2 draw at home to Wycombe, a 1-0 defeat at home to Preston, and that's all in the last 6 fixtures. They were only like 7 points or so off a second with 5 games left or something. And, you know, previous few games we've got like 1 point in the last 3 or something, 2 points in the last 3. But who knows, they might come up through the playoffs. I guess we'll see. Hopefully they do, because then they can take McBurney and Brewster off in our hands. Both former players. And Bristol City are probably the worst form so far this season, losing 3-2 at home to Luton. Luton have had a very good season and are currently 11th in the table, which is punching miles above their weight. While Bristol City, despite having been first after around 10 fixtures or so, are currently 18th in the table. And they're not threatened by relegation, but their current run of form has been very bad. So earlier this season, Bristol City started off the season with a 2-1 victory at home to Coventry. They won at Stoke, then they beat Wednesday, then they won at Forest, they drew at Barnsley, they lost to Middlesbrough, and that's when it started going downhill for them. Like the first 4 or 5 games, they started off really well. Get a draw, defeat, win. Started building up a little bit again, but now the latter half of this season, they just lost at home to Luton, they lost at home to bottom of the league Wycombe not long ago, drew away to Wednesday, drew with Forest, lost at Coventry, lost at home to Stoke, lost at home to Rotherham, drew at Blackburn. They haven't won in 8 fixtures. That is not good form at all. And I think they're going to struggle to build that momentum come the end of the season for next season onwards. So we're quickly going to run through what's happened in the lower leagues through the weekend. If you wanna like have any input, just interrupt me at any point. It's fine. If not, I'm just gonna run through them. Yep. So Portsmouth beat Bristol Rovers by 1-0. Peterborough won 1-0 at Charlton, which was another big fixture, and looks like it might have just about got Peterborough promoted. They're 9 points clear with 3 games left. They just need a point to get promoted. Their goal difference is looking very good. Charlton are 2 points off of the top 6, which is now Sunderland, Lincoln, Oxford and Blackpool currently in the playoffs. MK Dons relegated Swindon with a 5-0 victory. Will Grigg got 4. Will Grigg's on fire. I know Bristol Rovers are also terrified. Exactly. I know Bristol Rovers are also relegated after their 1-0 defeat at Portsmouth. Wigan drew 1-1 with Burton. Which takes Wigan up to 20th and 4 points adrift of the drop, which is good for them. hopefully they can carry on and stay up. Oxford beat Plymouth by 3-1, and an entertaining game at the Stadium of Light was between Sunderland and Accrington, which actually finished 3-3. Accrington were looking like pushing on for the playoffs, but they're now 6 points adrift. Blackpool are 6 and they have a game in hand over them, and they only have 3 games left. It doesn't look likely. Crewe drew 1-1 with Rochdale. Rochdale have a game in hand over the teams around them, and are only 5 points adrift of safety. So for them, they might be able to push on and take safety maybe. I guess we'll see. Gillingham 2, Northampton 2. Doncaster lost again at home to Fleetwood. Doncaster are dropped from 5th to 13th in about 7 games or something now, and it's not looking promising for them ever since Darren Moore left for Sheffield Wednesday. Ipswich 0, Wimbledon 0. A very mediocre season for Ipswich. By their standards, they should be competing for top 2, and they're 11th. What I've seen with Ipswich is last season they had a bad season. This season they've had a bad season. You know, I'm seeing a Sheffield United in the making with Ipswich. We had a good season, good, average, bad. You know, our League One season sort of went from like doing all right to not doing too well. I see that happening with Ipswich. Then we have Blackpool 0, Shrewsbury 1, which is a massive victory for the Shrews, which takes them away from relegation and means that they won't be relegated now. But it means that Blackpool are now really in danger of losing their playoff spot, but do have a game in hand over the teams around them. Lincoln lost 2-1 at home to Hull, and Hull have gotten promoted to the Championship. Congratulations to them. Maybe they'll go on to win the league. I guess we'll see. They are 4 points clear of second place Peterborough, but Peterborough do have a game in hand over them. So moving on to League 2. Unless you had something to add.
Nope.
Moving on to League 2, we had Exeter 0, Newport County 0, Oldham 1, Grimsby 2, Morecambe 0, Bolton 1, which is a massive victory for Bolton, as Bolton are in 3rd place, beating 4th place Wickham away from home, meaning they're 4 points clear. And remember, the top 3 go from League 2, so they're 4 points clear of 4th with 2 games left. It looks now like it's going to be Cheltenham, Cambridge, Bolton to get promoted. Cheltenham also have a game in hand and are league leaders. 6 points clear of 4th place with much better goal difference. I'd say Cheltenham at this point are pretty much promoted. Carlisle 1, Harrogate 1, Cheltenham 1, Colchester 0, Port Vale 2, Bradford 1, Crawley 0, Forest Green 0, Southend 2, Leyton Orient 1, Cambridge 0, Stevenage 1, Tranmere 1, Barrow 0, Scunthorpe 0, Walsall 2, and Salford City 2, Mansfield Town 0. So at the bottom of that table, Southend won a game to give himself that little bit of hope going into their final 2 fixtures this season, sitting 5 points adrift, 22nd place Barrow. And Grimsby have an extra game to play, so they have 3 games left and they're 6 points off for safety. It's shaping up to be a very interesting finish to the League 2 season. So final league we're going to move on to before we talk briefly about UCL is the National League. So the National League, again, another really entertaining league. For anyone that's never watched it, watch it. So this weekend just gone, Halifax 1, Bromley 2, Boreham Wood 0, Stockport 3, Altrincham 2, Barnet 3, Torquay 2, Notts County 2, Solihull Moors 5, Yeovil 1, Wrexham 0, Chesterfield 0, Maidenhead 2, Woking 1, Kings Lynn Town 0, Dagenham and Redbridge 3, Aldershot Town 2, Wealdstone 0, and Eastleigh 1, Sutton United 0. So, looking at their table, Torquay have a game in hand, and they are top of the league joint with Hartlepool. Sutton are just a point behind, but have 2 games in hand over Hartlepool and 1 over Torquay. Stockport, 5 points off the top of the table in 4th, and have a game in hand over Hartlepool, but Sutton have a game in hand over them. So this is looking like it's going to be a very interesting finish of the season. I believe they only play 42 games apiece because there's only 22 teams in the league. Dover have been expelled from the league for something that's out of their control. I disagree with it, but that's for another time. Barnsley, despite winning, are bottom of the league and really struggling. They've won 2 of their last 5 fixtures as well, but they are really, really struggling this season. Having won only 5 games all season, and it looks like they might be into the 6th tier next season. So, the last thing that we're going to talk about on today's show is the UEFA Champions League, and I'm going to let you kick us off with that, Keds.
Alright, so the Champions League. Tomorrow we have got Real Madrid versus Chelsea, which I think is going to be interesting. It's for a lot of reasons. So first off, you've obviously got Eden Hazard. He's fit just in time to return to play against Chelsea. Of course he is. He created the most chances of all the players that played versus Eibar against the weekend. And he only played 13 minutes, so it sounds like he's in good form. Because, playing 13 minutes and...
That's scary. That's scary statistics right there.
That is scary. Tuchel got asked in his press conference today whether he wants Hazard to play or not. And he said, well, obviously I'll be happier if they left the spot empty, but they're not going to play with 10. Which goes to show that I think even Tuchel doesn't want to play against Hazard right now. Which it's good to hear, right? Because Hazard's had a injury hit spell at Real Madrid, which is sad to see. He never really managed to get the ground running, and if he has a good performance against us tomorrow, I don't think I'll be too angry because I want to see him succeed because obviously he's a legend of the club. Yeah. And speaking of injuries, Chelsea have a clean bill of health. Apart from Mateo Kovacic, that's a very key player that's missing out tomorrow. And he's been missing for a while. We got past Man City without him, so hopefully we can pull through. I'm guessing the midfield duo will be Jorginho and Kante, as it has been for the last few weeks. But what is interesting is that from a Chelsea point of view, there's a lot of symmetry with that night in Munich in 2012. With a manager departing mid-season and a new manager guiding them to the knockout stages. We don't want to make comparisons just yet, but, that's how that night in Munich came about. They were the underdogs, and you never know. And also, Werner got his goal against West Ham, obviously. Is it the Chelsea attackers coming into form at the perfect time? You will never know. Like, Pulisic, Havertz, Ziyech, Werner... all seem to be getting a bit more involved at the business end of the season, which, better late than never. But also his goal versus West Ham is 9 years to the day where Torres famously rounded the goalkeeper at the Camp Nou to get to the Champions League final. Now, coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. An out-of-form striker scoring, comparisons have been made. Both teams obviously were involved in the Super League. Florentino Perez, being Real Madrid's president as well as the chair of the Super League, is seen by many as the bad guy. And does that give Chelsea the support of the neutrals, do you think?
I think it does, yeah. I also want to point out the last time these two teams met in a European fixture was in the 1998 UEFA Super Cup final, which finished 1-0 to Chelsea. Not that it's any form to go on, because that's over 20 years ago. Plus, they've only met 4 times ever in European football, which is actually quite surprising to say that these two teams are regular contenders in the Champions League. It's very surprising to say that. What are your predictions for this game?
I don't really want to predict anything, to be honest, because Chelsea have come in. I'd say Chelsea are going into it in good form. But Real Madrid are very experienced when it comes to the Champions League. Especially Zinedine Zidane, he knows how to get to a Champions League final, that's for sure. But I don't know. My heart wants to tell me that Chelsea will just get that miracle 1-0 away win.
It's not a bad shot. You did it against Atletico.
my head wants to say that Real Madrid are going to take it 2-1 in the first leg. And I think that Eden Hazard and Karim Benzema are going to have a big part to play in that.
Okay, well, again, just looking at these statistics that we have here, Chelsea have only actually lost one of their last 7 previous first leg fixtures in the semi-final of the UEFA Champions League, which was in a 3-1 defeat to Monaco in 2003-04. Again, form of history isn't really much to go on. You kind of have to go on form of the current season that's being played. But I think, especially in the Champions League, I think Chelsea have been a really dominant side. I think their performances against Atletico Madrid were outstanding. And I think I'm going to go 1-1 in this first fixture. And I'm going to give it goals. I think Mason Mount's going to score.
Mason Mount does tend to step up.
I think Mason Mount's going to be the player to get the goal for Chelsea.
What about Real Madrid?
Oh, I don't know.
My heart, honestly...
I'm going to go Vinicius Junior.
My heart just says if I want anyone to score for Real Madrid, I want it to be Eden Hazard.
I think Vinicius Junior will score.
It's interesting. It's definitely an interesting fixture.
Definitely.
But yeah, I feel like the whole Super League thing, it's just not good for anyone. And speaking of Super League, you've got in PSG versus Man City. PSG are the only team in the semi-finals who haven't been hit by any of this Super League stuff because they rejected the invitation. Which meant if the other 3 remaining teams or the teams involved were kicked from the competition, that would mean PSG would win by default. But they're not going to win by default. And obviously winning by default, there was also talk of Real Madrid actually being kicked out because of Perez. And then Chelsea getting a bye to the final, which personally I'd disagree with. And I think PSG, in the same respect, if all the teams got kicked out, then I don't think PSG would really count it morally as a win because they wouldn't have actually had to play the game to earn it. But going off history, PSG have they reached the Champions League final last season, obviously, losing narrowly to Bayern Munich, who were an absolute powerhouse last season.
Oh, they were definitely.
Absolute powerhouse. Congratulations to PSG eliminating them this season. That was an entertaining spectacle, that was. Yeah, PSG could reach their 2nd consecutive Champions League final, but Man City are going to be tough to break down, having just come off the Carabao Cup final victory at the weekend. So they're going to be feeling themselves. Pep Guardiola is no mug.
No, he isn't, definitely. But Man City are just one of them teams that seems to struggle to win the Champions League, and always in the latter stages when they do get there,
they seem to falter.
Dismantle and they fall apart a little bit. And I don't think this season's going to be any exception. I think PSG are going to win this first leg quite comfortably, if I'm honest. I think they're going to win it 3-0.
Although, in saying that, City are unbeaten against PSG in 3 meetings, 2 draws, and most recent being 1-0 in the second leg of a tie in 2016. I think that City will come out on top, riding off the confidence of that FA Cup in the first leg. But I feel like if the pressure is on in the second leg, I think this tie depends on the first leg. If City win the first leg, I back them to see it through. But if they don't get an away goal, I think that's crucial. If they don't get an away goal in this leg, I don't think they go through. Because when the pressure will be on them in that home leg if they don't get this away goal. And PSG are deadly.
Yeah, I agree. I think PSG, in my opinion, are going to be my favourites to win the Champions League this season.
I'd say that's a fair shout, and I'd say especially for a player like Neymar and obviously Kylian Mbappe, it'd be good to see them win the Champions League.
Of
It would be
course,
really good
definitely.
to see them win it. City won't be winning it, no.
No,
I don't think so
I
either.
agree.
Um,
Go on. Sorry.
no, I just don't think that City have what it takes, which is weird. It's really weird. Obviously City have been struggling to score with their front men. Obviously, they've been playing without a striker for most of the season. They've been using most of the time Kevin De Bruyne as a false nine. Obviously, we saw a Gabriel Jesus feature recently as well.
Yeah.
And the notable absence of Sergio Aguero, who seems to be really out of favour, linked with a free transfer away from the Etihad in the summer. And as you can see from the score sheet there, Aymeric Laporte, the difference maker. And he is a key player, along with Ruben Diaz at the back.
He's a solid defender,
Two
isn't he?
very good. Man City do have a very good defence. But likewise, PSG, they've got Kimpembe, they've got Marquinhos. Like, it's not like PSG are short, and they've also got a goalkeeper who has never lost a two-legged tie in the
Yeah.
Champions League.
There you go.
And that is obviously none other than Keylor Navas. And the one defeat he's had would be that final to Bayern Munich. But can you really blame him? It's Bayern Munich.
Yeah, no. But yeah, still speaking about Man City, I just want to talk about the win yesterday in the EFL Cup. Congratulations to them on such a good victory. Tottenham were a little bit of a pushover in this game on statistics. I mean, they only had 2 shots all game, and they only had 37% possession. You know, by all accounts, Man City hammered them.
Yeah. I'd say that's got a lot to do with the sacking of Jose Mourinho.
Now, I know that's quite controversial as well, because I know a lot of people are saying it's based on previous performances, but you look at Tottenham, they're not actually doing that bad. If anything, I've been told, I don't know how true it is, it's a rumour as far as I'm aware, I've been told it's to do with them signing up for the Super League, and Mourinho didn't want to do it.
Mourinho refused to take the players onto the training pitch. He refused to take the players onto the training pitch, and obviously the board see that and just get rid of him. Because obviously he has a 30 million payout in his contract when he got sacked. So he's laughing. He's got 30 million in the bank. He's laughing. And obviously I think Daniel Levy is relying on the Super League working to get that 30 million to pay Jose Mourinho, which he now won't get. And Ryan Mason as a manager, really unproven. I just think it was a gamble that just didn't pay off. I really do. I really don't see if it didn't have anything to do with the recent performances, because also what you've got to take into account is previously you've had it with Chelsea and Antonio Conte. He won the FA Cup and he got sacked, and he won a court case for unfair dismissal.
Yeah.
Now, from a financial perspective, it's the perfect time for Tottenham to sack Mourinho. Because if you want anyone to beat a team like Man City and really make it hard, it would be Mourinho. He knows how to make it hard. He can make a team really hard to break down. But obviously sacking him before he has the chance to win it, he then can't file for unfair dismissal. So I think that's why they did it when they did. Because other than that, it makes no sense to dismiss a manager like Mourinho just before a cup final.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree with you. And I think the Ryan Mason appointment is more of a rushed decision than anything. But I guess we'll see how it pays off. So before we end, I'm gonna see how the top flights are doing in the top 4 European leagues aside from the Premier League. We'll have a brief discussion and then we will finish. So we'll start with La Liga. As I understand it, Barcelona are actually doing incredibly well now, and if I'm correct, Barcelona have taken the lead in the league this season. No, they haven't. They're still 2 points behind. Sorry, but they do have a game in hand. So looking at this, Atletico bottled it. Atletico definitely bottled it. Earlier this season, I know Sociedad had a really good start to the season. That was never going to last, was it? Let's be honest. But Atletico Madrid, there was a point of the season where they had like 3 or 4 games in hand over Madrid and Barcelona, and they were about 10 points clear. And now they're on 73 points, 2 points clear of Real Madrid and Barcelona do have a game in hand. And don't count out Sevilla. Sevilla are only 3 points behind also. Now, honestly, from that table, how amazing would it be if Sevilla won the league?
It would have been, but...
Completely unexpected, but I don't think it'll happen. I think, honestly, Barcelona will win it, then Atletico, Real Madrid, then Sevilla. And looking at the relegation zone in that league, I think Eibar are pretty much down at this point. 6 points adrift. As far as I'm aware, their current form isn't too good. There's still 5 games left to play. You know, their bottom of the table is still a lot more interesting than the Premier League's. Huesca and Valladolid are just inside of relegation, while Elche, Alaves, Getafe, and even Valencia are within touching distance of relegation this season. I think Valencia will probably be safe, but you know, it's not been a very good season for them by their standards. Do you have any thoughts on La Liga?
Not really. I think it's kind of as expected, to be honest. The La Liga table, obviously, the top you could have in different orders, but it's I'd say it's as expected.
Yeah. So moving on to the Bundesliga. And Bayern are leading by quite a bit again. 3 games remaining, 7 points clear. I think it's safe to say that Bayern have won the league. Leipzig again 7 points clear of 3rd place. Wolfsburg again with 3 games remaining. I think it's safe to say they're second. Now the next few teams are Wolfsburg, Frankfurt, and Dortmund. And I know Frankfurt didn't have the best starts of the season, but they're really coming to themselves lately. And there's only 2 points separating 3rd from 5th in that league. And I know Dortmund, despite having Haaland and having a lot of goals, they haven't been at their best this season by any means. But I think Wolfsburg and Frankfurt are going to struggle to stay above them. But I guess we'll see how that happens. I want to give a shout out to Union Berlin, who have had an incredible season after getting promoted last season and now being 8th in the table and battling with the top 5 for the majority of the season. That's an incredible achievement by their standards. Stuttgart and Freiburg have really improved this season too. Hoffenheim aren't at the best. Werder Bremen aren't at the best. Cologne and Hertz are really struggling. Cologne may be to be expected. They're a sort of lower table side. Hertha Berlin do have 3 games in hand, but they are 4 points adrift of safety and aren't in the best form. And we want to say commiserations to Schalke as well, who have been relegated from the Bundesliga for the first time in a long time. And a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have seen anything like that happening. They were a top 3 side to it 3 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just gone down the toilet.
It's sad to see teams. Yes, it's sad to see teams going down like that. But it does happen.
Yeah, it does happen. Do you have any input?
Not too much, to be honest. I mean, the Bundesliga, most of the time, we know that Bayern are going to win it. Rumours going around that Hansi Flick is on his way out at the end of the season, which, you know, it's a talking point.
Schalke did have a lot of debt, yeah.
Inter Milan. It's really...
Sorry, is very different to how I pitched it being. I know AC Milan were up there, top of the league, around Christmas time-ish, early New Year. Juventus were up there, Inter Milan were up there. It was literally just 3 teams. Atalanta and Napoli weren't too far off. But looking at it now, Inter Milan, I think it's safe to say Inter Milan are definitely going to win this league.
Yeah, I'd say so.
11 points clear with 5 games remaining, and a really good goal difference as well to back them up. The only major competitors in that lead to an Inter Milan, in my opinion, are Juventus and AC Milan, and neither of them are threatening. Milan, as you can see, are currently losing in the current game too, away to Lazio. And that goal has come from Joaquim Correa in the second minute. Looking at the foots of that table, Crotone, I think, are just about relegated. 13 points adrift, 15 to play for.
I'd say so.
Parma also, 11 points adrift. I thought Parma were doing better than that, I won't lie. But the very bottom of that table, that 18th place upwards, that's very exciting to see. 5 games remaining, and there is 5 points between 13th and 18th, meaning Benevento, Cagliari, Torino, Spezia, Fiorentina, and Genoa are all within touching distance of relegation here, and it's not looking very promising for some of the teams in that mix, especially Fiorentina, who have always been a big side in Italy, and a big entertaining side in Italy. And let's be honest, everybody loves a team who plays in purple. And I agree with you, Freakout. His voice is it's very nice to listen to, isn't it? Unlike my voice. So Liga. So the Liga table. And this is another one that is shaping up to be very interesting in these final few games. It's between Lille, PSG, and Monaco. Lyon have just slipped out a little bit, but if Lille can hold that up, I think is that 2 seasons in a row without PSG winning the league. Didn't Rennes not win it? I thought Rennes won it last season. No, became third. No. Apologies for that. No, sorry. The season got abandoned last season, didn't it? But that'd be something that you wouldn't expect to see. I know Lille have been up there for the past 3 or 4 years, been up at the top 4 side, but winning the league is different to finishing top 4. And I think it'd be nice to see somebody else win it for a change. Definitely. Lens, however you say that, have had a really good season. They only got promoted last season, bear that in mind. They only got promoted last season and they are currently 5th, chasing down a European finish. They're above the likes of Marseille, Rennes, Nice, Montpellier. And when you look at relegation, Dion are relegated. 12 points to play for, 17 points adrift. It's not looking good for them. Nîmes, Olympique, and Nantes are not in great positions either. But Lorient, Bordeaux, Strasbourg are also not quite safe yet either, within 6 points of relegation and only having 12 left to play for.
Yeah.
So, one last thing I want to ask you, Keds. How do you think the Premier League is going to finish?
The Premier League, well, I think we know at this point that Man City will win the league. Man United obviously second. Quite a good season for them, to be fair.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Can I just let everyone know Crystal Palace are leading at Leicester. Wilfried Zaha with a 12-minute goal. We're 33 minutes into that game.
That is... I don't know. I think that the Man United obviously second. Yeah. I think if it stays this way, then the pressure is really on Leicester, and you could maybe see Chelsea in third. But if the game turns around, which I won't be surprised, and Leicester do win this game in hand, then Leicester will most likely finish third. Chelsea, I reckon, will finish fourth. Liverpool, it's difficult because teams have got very difficult runs into the rest of the season. I'd say Liverpool and West Ham, it's going to be interesting to see. I think that Liverpool will probably finish fifth, in my opinion. but
Okay.
West Ham then finishing 6th. But by no means does that mean that West Ham have had a bad season. I just think Liverpool, they have pressure on them. They need to succeed. So I feel like that is hopefully gonna help them out. But obviously, if West Ham finish 5th, that is great for football in general. So I'd be pleased to see either of them finish 5th or 6th. I just want to see Chelsea in the top 4 personally.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's understandable. I want to see Sheffield United in top 4, but I don't think it's going to happen. Just got this feeling. I'm going to make a strong prediction for next season as well. I'm going to say we're not going to get top 4 next season either.
Ooh. Interesting. I wonder why.
I'm going to change that top 6 a little bit from what you said. I'm going to go same top 2, Man City and Man United, then Leicester, Chelsea. So top 4 is not going to change from what it currently is. But I'm going to keep West Ham in 5th. I think West Ham will finish 5th. And I think Everton are going to finish 6th.
It is an interesting prediction, obviously, with Everton having the game in hand. Which
if they win it, we'll put them above Liverpool as well.
Which will put them above Liverpool if they win. So it's a valid prediction. It's a big race for the top 6.
It is. It's a massive race, isn't it? And it's very exciting to see. I think seeing a race for top of the league is exciting, but it's usually between 2 teams. Seeing it for top 6, there's so many teams in the mix this late in the season. It's very entertaining to watch. Yeah, so what about your bottom 3?
Bottom 3, I think it stays as is, to be honest.
You think you don't think there'll be any surprise packages?
Not really, because I think Brighton have what it takes. They just need to do more of the same.
Yeah.
And they'd have to drop a hell of a lot of points.
Yeah, that is right. That is correct. But do remember, they do have to play West Ham, Arsenal and Man City in the final 3 fixtures.
And then, I don't know, I feel like Fulham, if I'm not mistaken, they do have to play Chelsea. Which isn't an easy fixture.
They do, that is the next fixture.
They don't have too easy of a run in either, and I can't see Newcastle dropping into it, to be honest.
No, I think Newcastle
they've been performing very well.
I think if anybody could drop into it, it's only Brighton. I don't think anybody else will drop into it. But yeah, Fulham do have to play Chelsea away, Burnley at home, Southampton away, Manchester United away, and Newcastle at home. So really, I think Fulham will take 4 points from that.
Possibly, yeah.
West Brom have to play Wolverhampton Wanderers at home, Arsenal away, Liverpool at home, West Ham at home, and then Leeds away. I don't think West Brom will pick up any points actually in the final 5 fixtures.
It's hard to see.
Maybe one. I'm thinking maybe might get a draw against Arsenal. I think they'll lose the rest. Sheffield United will win the last 5 games, of course. Probably will. I mean, we've got Tottenham away, which, like you said, after sacking Mourinho, it's not looking good for them. That might play in our favour. Might help us build momentum, especially with just beating Brighton. But I'm going to say Tottenham will lose it. Palace, I think we'll beat Palace. Lose at Everton. Lose at Newcastle. Draw with Burnley. Then we'll get 4 points. I know 5 games. But doesn't matter. So we'll win league next season. We'll win 46 games. Probably, maybe, probably not. I don't know. We'll see, won't we? So yeah, I think we'll end it there. And it's been an hour and 55 minutes. So nearly that 2 hour mark. We'll be back on Friday. So streams from now on my channel will just be this. There'll be no more gaming streams. So I'm going to be releasing content 4 times a week. So on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, I'm releasing content. Right? But streams will just be these football podcasts, which will be on a Monday and a Friday. They're going to run from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time. I know today we started later, but this is just a one-off of the first episode. Hopefully on Friday, we will be joined by the architect and by coming to get your players also. Are you joining us again on Friday, kids?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, see, you got Keds. Hey. Lucky guys. Lucky you. Why no gaming? Thought you like... Yeah, I am. I'm going to finish Lima, but I'm not going to stream it. Yeah, I'm going to do it off stream. So, yes, thank you for coming, guys. We do appreciate it. Thank you for being here for our first football talk show. I'm not going to lie, kind of nervous at first, but glad we did it. Yeah, I will see you on Friday, 6 p.m. Normal stream time, pretty much. So, yeah, everybody have a great night. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the Champions League. And we will review that and preview the weekend on Friday. Good night, guys. You're not saying good night.